non-negotiables. And so I work with every client to say, what are your non-negotiables for exercise, for sleep? And this isn't about anything in the zeitgeist, right? This is very much like, as humans, we need body movement. As humans, we need sleep, we need food, we need time with others, and whatever that could mean. For me, one of mine is whimsy and fun, because if I don't make time for that truly, then I'm not my best self. And so in building a foundation of your non-negotiables and then building your habits and your life from that place, rather than trying to make success is the only non-negotiable and everything else falls apart, right? Because I've sacrificed myself and my health and my relationships, especially in my late 20s when no one taught me better. It was the cost of doing business, not a cost that I'm willing to pay ever again. It's
Right. Each week, I'm joined by my co-host, Claudia Cuevas, licensed marriage and family therapist, as we explore the stories, lessons, and emotional realities behind transformation. Because reinvention isn't just about changing our circumstances. It's about understanding yourself. It's about healing. It's about letting go of who you thought you had to be so you can become who you were always meant to be. Pull up a chair and join us at the table. This is Elevate Within. Welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis.
And I'm your co-host, Claudia Cuevas.
This week, we sat down with Tristan Stawicki for a powerful conversation about self-trust, healing, and what happens when we achieved everything you thought you wanted, but still feel disconnected from yourself. Tristan shared the moment where she was standing in the financial district in New York, looking out at the Statue of Liberty after a major professional success and realized she felt absolutely nothing. That moment became the beginning of a years-long journey that included EMDR therapy, acupuncture, reiki, shamanic practices, and a deep commitment to rebuilding herself from the inside out. She also shared a powerful perspective on discernment, reminding us that healing isn't about blindly accepting someone else's truth. It's about learning to trust your own. Today, Claudia and I are going to go into a deeper dive into some of the emotional and psychological themes behind Tristan's story. Let's get into it. Claudia, what stood out to you from Tristan's story?
I mean, it was such an amazing story of going from this corporate life to now her practice of being so attuned to her body, nature, and the practices that she has and how she's able to help people integrate what they're feeling or what's around them. I thought it was very interesting. Very
I mean, she
interesting.
covered all of it, and she named a lot of
Yeah.
practices and wellness that I've never even heard of. And I know
Yes.
last week, so I'm glad we're coming up with this
Yes.
conversation because we were talking about the different avenues of therapy.
Yes. We
So
owe
let's
our
just get
listener.
into
Yeah,
that.
we
I
owe
know.
our
Let's get
listeners.
into it.
Yeah, we owe our listeners. We said we were going to go through. So this is a really good opportunity for us to kind of break down some of these therapeutic modalities, right? So you were asking, okay, what do we do? What do I search for? What do I need to know? What kind of therapy can I even start off with and ask, right? And so as promised, we're going to talk about some of the many, many different modalities, different types of therapies and specializations that people or therapists can get, right? And so I will tell you, I am trained in a variety of different type of modalities, right? And so we'll start off with the most popular or what we call evidence-based therapy. So CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And so what it does is um, its core philosophy is it's your thoughts and your feelings and how those affect behavior, right? And so it really helps you identify challenges, um, any what we call cognitive distortions, right? So a cognitive distortion would be an unhelpful thought or maybe an intrusive thought, right? Like thinking I'm dumb all the time or nobody likes me. I'm not good enough. Those are unhelpful thoughts that we have that literally will affect the way that we feel. And so CBT is very popular. You'll see it in it's insurance loves if you're going to use your insurance, they love therapists to use CBT, right? It's evidence based. We can talk about a thought, a behavior that we want to modify, extinguish, or improve, and then we lower those symptoms, right? So it's best used for like generalized anxiety, a panic
Mm.
disorder, mild to moderate depression, insomnia. CBT will really go like, so what are you thinking? And is your thought affecting the way that you behave, right? So
And I'm glad you
cognitive
gave
behavior therapy.
examples of like what type of folks will see that. That I think that will help the listeners and
Yep.
myself as well to educate on like to know the difference. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a great place to start off with because we all are governed by our thoughts, right? And so maybe you don't know that it's the way that you're thinking about things, right? Like, I think my partner is going to cheat on me. And therefore, I'm constantly looking for,
Checking his phone,
yep.
looking for something. Yeah.
And so that's causing a lot of problems because there's a lot of mistrust. And my partner's saying, like, but that makes me feel like you don't trust me. And it's like, so we kind of will explore that. So it's a very common type of therapy. Like I said, like insurances love it because it's very evidence based. The other one is called ACT, and it's called acceptance and commitment therapy, right? And so that one goes a lot, and we'll talk a little bit about DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy, but they kind of go in hand. But it uses a lot of mindfulness and really being in the moment and today. It's what they call like radical acceptance. It's really accepting. There's like a whole graph that you use, and so it's a little bit more hands-on, but it really talks about like, what is true, what can you change, and what do you need to kind of accept of like this is the reality and this is what it is right now, right? And so I think we talked about in other episodes, but like, anxiety will focus on the future of the things that you can't control. And so you get very about like what's going to happen and what if this happens. And so, and then depression will kind of talk about like the things that you can't control from your past. Right. And so ACT is really good or best used for like chronic pain, treatment for
Mm.
resistant anxiety, life transitions, a lot of OCD, right? So if you can hear a lot of anxiety based kind of like ailments there when it comes, because we're trying to get you to go, yes, you're right. I'm gonna have pain for the rest of my life. Yes, but what's the pain today? On a scale
Mm.
of 1 to 10. Oh, because it's not always going to be at a 10, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's at a 7. And so we really want to check in on staying in the here and now and being able to kind of like be in your body, be in the present so that you're not basically future tripping.
Yeah.
And so then another one would be DBT. DBT, I love. I'm also trained in it. And it's dialectical behavioral therapy. DBT talks about, in simple terms, is two things being true at the same time, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is, I love you and I hate you today. I'm mad at you today, right? A lot of times people have a hard time distinguishing between those two things being true at the same time, right? And so DBT was developed by this therapist. Marshall is her last name, but she had a lot of clients that she would see that had or were diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, right? And so
Okay.
borderline personality disorder is what we call on the axis 2. So it's not depression, anxiety. Axis 2 becomes like a personality disorder, right? So it's typically things that are not going to help with medication. because it is about the way that you kind of see the world. And so borderline personality disorder tend to have a lot of issues with needing other people to validate how they're experiencing things. And so note, a lot of people will describe someone that is showing borderline personality traits, right? Not necessarily disorder, but traits, as someone who's bipolar.
Mm.
So let's experiment.
Yeah.
When someone has described like or even yourself, right? Like, oh my God, I think they're bipolar. What are some of the things that you immediately think of?
Because it was a condition on my mom's side.
Uh,
So
you're much
they
more versed in it.
yeah, don't truly understand it. So I tell people like, listen, I'm just like you listeners where I'm just gonna wing it here. It's happy one moment, then they get really upset. One minor trigger, they would get very upset or deeply depressed. So if it was anger, it was heightened. Depression, it was like they were below the depression line.
Right,
If they were happy, they were going past it. So to me, with the bipolar, like, can you just stay within
right,
the realm, to stay within the arena?
right.
And it's like they catapult out. And
Hmm.
then I will say this as a caveat for you to speak about. Those are also the ones where they're taking so many different types of medications that
Uh-huh.
my understanding of bipolar then was like, they're just all fucked up. Like, because of the medication
Uh-huh.
adding to it.
Right.
Am I
So,
right?
yeah, yes, yes, and yes, and a lot of the times, what we see is co-occurring disorders, right? So someone has bipolar disorder, which you're right, it is someone who, like, there's someone who cycles quickly. Majority of people cycle with one episode of mania and then live in much more of a baseline depression. So they tend to go very depressed. That's typically what we see with bipolar disorder, where they're like they suffer a lot with going into a depressive mood. So they're in bed, they're not able to like function. They really, and then they go back to maybe baseline. The second time will be they're manic, right? So they're going off to Vegas, spending all kinds of money. They're starting a lot of businesses. But it's euphoric, right? There's a
Mm,
lot of euphoria. There's a lot of I can run a marathon euphoria. Um, and so they go there and then they crash out, right? They go back down, or it feels like I hear people who have where they go into a manic sort of like I can write a book and I can like start a business and I'm gonna go to Vegas because we can become like I'll stay up at night for 3, 4 days, that kind of stuff. The mood part, they get triggered and now they're angry, that's not bipolar.
it's not.
Mm-mm. That's the borderline.
Wow.
So a lot of times I'll see co-occurring things where they not only have bipolar disorder, they also have borderline personality disorder. And those two things coexist because one of them is a chemical imbalance and the other one is a personality thing.
Chemical imbalance. Let me ask you, how, because, witnessing my mom and her brother, and I have a friend who was diagnosed with bipolar, and, I got to a point where I was like, they keep telling you got all this shit, and I don't think that's it. I think they're just over medicating you. Is there
Mhm.
such a thing? And can the medication affect or enhance to be like, see, this is how you're bipolar because look what you're doing? But could it also be a side effect of not having the right medication?
Um, we are much more advanced when it comes to medication now, where typically in the past people would get like some type of sedative. And so the problem with the sedative was that it would like kick in their depression, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you get a sedative and all of a sudden it's like it's a downer and now I'm going into my depression. Um and and then you get the one for depression, right? in the long past, and then so the depression one kicks you up, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh damn, it kicked in the mania, right? And so
Is that what they call
now,
the happy pill? Like my friend would be like, "Oh, I got to take my happy pill this morning," or my mom was taking uppers and downers.
yeah, she probably wasn't she wasn't being prescribed, like she might have been prescribing herself, right? Because I think the problem with the bipolar is that when did you go to when did you go to the psychiatrist, right? Were
Hmm.
you down or were you up? That's what you're going to get. And so it's much more advanced now. There's like
Oh, thank goodness.
Wellbutrin, and there's this thing where it's like slow release, and that, or you're getting two that kind of covers one or the other. We have it's not typical not to have like not a response once you become bipolar is very, very much manageable with the right therapy and the right psychiatrist who's giving you really the right dosing. It's like very productive, under control. We don't typically see people who have a hard time with their bipolar disorder unless they're off their medication. And I could tell
Yeah. And
right
then that
away.
that personality
Uh-huh.
disorder,
So
is
then the
that what?
personality disorder, that is the highly, highly needing attention, making things about themselves, popping off with like getting mad, anger, a lot of blaming others for whatever they're doing, right? I will typically describe, and it's not funny, but I'll describe it's those relationships where the the partner's like, I'm breaking up with you, and they're throwing themselves in the car and going like, don't leave
Hmm.
me, right? Which is what most people think of. Oh my God, they're bipolar. And it's like, no, they're not. That's not bipolar. Bipolar is, you know, very different. That is much more of a borderline kind of trait, right? It's what before they used to call women like they're hysterical and she's
Yeah.
hysterical, like we don't use that terminology anymore, but it really is a lot of like invalidation. So it's really caused from a childhood trauma, right? Where maybe you had the type of mother or caregiver who um, wasn't there, didn't tend to your needs, you didn't understand, or was heavily dependent on you being the person that is telling them how to feel, or there's a lot of attachment issues, and that you can be really predisposed because of like your brain chemistry also, and so there's a lot of factors when it comes to that. um but they really have a hard time managing their emotions,
Mm,
right?
okay.
And so it feels like you can just be with them and they pop off on you and you're like, what the hell? Or they're just highly high. It feels like they're always so emotional, but they're really just having a hard time regulating their emotions. And
Mm,
so DBT, dialectical behavior, is so structured. It is very structured. It's heavy on like psychoeducation. Like there's like dear man, where like you kind of like know how to like notice and really getting you to understand your emotions and being able to like name them, and how do you do that? And just because you feel it doesn't mean, because they'll tell you like, I'm gonna die, like if you leave me, I'm
mm-hmm.
gonna die. And so it's like, but are you, right? Like, well, how do we know that that's true? And really kind of giving them back kind of some autonomy on their emotions, because they really feel that their emotions rule their life. And so
Mm-hmm.
really kind of like structure. I really like DBT, not just if you're have some borderline traits, but I really think parents would benefit to learn some of the DBT skills to teach their young children on how to regulate their emotions,
Are there
right?
books on that,
Oh
or?
yeah, there's like you can get I probably have one, but there's like a workbook that you can self kind of do. So there's like the DBT solution. Um, there's like workbooks that you can kind of, do free, or you can even look it up. There's a lot of skills. So I mean, my book is this thick with like the different type of, skills that we can kind of learn on how to, anybody can benefit from DBT, because it teaches you that two things can coexist, right? That just because you're mad doesn't mean you have to break up with someone and it's going to be the end of the world. That you can be mad and still love someone, and then be disappointed and still like want to be in a relationship with
Right.
someone, right? You don't
Right.
have to like, it's not this, there's, there's a lot of there's a lot of black and white thinking when it comes to that. And so it kind of helps you really come to terms with like, there's some gray area, and like, let's explore that and see what that looks like, right? And so there's language and a lot of skills building when it comes to that, coping skills, a lot of
Hmm.
coping skills.
Do you know anything about the shaman?
I don't, I don't know very much except for, um, what it looks like. I know that it comes like from a religious kind of background. So like I have a lot of friends who practice native, um, like religion. So they do
Hmm.
like sweat lodge, and they do like medicine, and they will do sundance and stuff. And so it really is this spiritual connection.
That's what I was
I
going to
really,
ask you. If it's more spiritual, like,
it
does that help with the mind or emotion?
it depends on what you feel that you need, right? So I really like the connecting to earth and connecting to like our mother power, and like really being that way. So you want to, there's a lot of intuition and really kind of, what is it, like the chakras, and do you like Reiki uses a lot of chakras and kind of like, the different steps. The
So Reiki,
chaman, right?
Reiki would be included in like that world.
It would be included in what is called the alternative medicine, right? Because
Mm.
each thing comes from a different kind of indigenous kind of way of practicing, right? So, like from India or from Native Americans, or even if we talk about like the Cuban and like Santeria and stuff, like those are that's very spiritual, religious kind of practices. And so really about like, what is it that you're um seeking out for yourself? Like some astrology. I mean, we can even, right? Like astrology, some people feel like I want that connection with, like, I know it's like beyond, normal conformity. I believe in like, I can feel the energies. I mean, you could talk about even in, California, and like the vortex and like energy, like
Hmm.
those things exist, right? And so crystals, like what do
Yeah,
you,
I've seen the
what
crystal people with
feels,
crystals.
yeah, what feels right for you, right? What do you want to bring in? Like I have, you probably can't see in the back, but I have like a salt lamp that I have here, because I think, I feel, I know energetically it cleans the system here. I have in back of my bookcase, I have some like white sage that was gifted to me, because that is the way that you're supposed to receive sage in order to for it to be medicinal, right? You don't go buy it at Mother's Market or Sprouts. Please don't do that. Please
Yeah.
don't do that, because that's not the point of the medicine,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
you got to honor where it comes from, right? So it comes from Native American, and you have to get gifted. That's why it comes wrapped in red little thing, because it protects, the red protects against the spirits. So, you know,
There's not
all
too
that.
many botanicas around here.
No, go to
So,
Santa Ana.
right. Thank you for shouting that out, because I was about to ask you, like, he'll give me a sign. Because I
Santa
usually
Ana.
have to have my friend ship my stuff from New York
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
over.
Uh-huh.
So I have my candles. I have my
Uh-huh.
mom's warriors and all that other stuff. But
Uh-huh.
those
Uh-huh.
those are like those different avenues of wellness,
Yeah,
connecting with my mother, the spirituality, the
right.
warriors, the universe, also the talk therapy. There was one part, and I don't remember the name of it, thing we do, where they was like, oh, saying like before you do like a big speech, like, you're just kind of tapping your
Your third
forehead or
eye,
your
your third
ears.
eye. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was like just tapping and everything. And I
Yeah.
was just like, all right, there's so many
So many.
avenues
So many.
of
So
wellness.
many.
And I actually had a couple of them on for our June,
Mhm.
the month of June, and like because I wasn't aware, and I'm sure a lot of others were not aware. It's like, hey, here are all these different avenues of healing, which is great, by the way, because we
100%.
need to figure out, we need to just start the healing, not even figure out. We need to just start the healing. And here's a whole supermarket,
Uh-huh.
different lanes of it. And now
Yep.
it's like, let's educate
Yep.
so folks know, like, okay, can I try this? Can I try that? What
So
personality
for
would I be going
for
through?
our listeners, like I really encourage you to when you seek out and if you're that kind of person where like I'm not very traditional. I have my things and I have this belief system. I think that we're connected to like mind, body, soul kind of situation, right? The more your therapist is trained in different modalities, the more you're going to be able to explore and they will be able to pull from those types of modalities in order to help you process, right? And so I know uh Tristan was talking about EMDR, right? So I'm trained in EMDR and I use it when I can see that my client is really stuck and feels like this just keeps on coming up for me. And so EMDR is like eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Okay, so it's like a really long word. But it's this bilateral kind of stimulation. It mimics REM sleep. And so
Mm,
if you have ever had a sleepover or seen anything, if you see someone's really sleeping, you can see their eyes kind of like twitching and moving. That is literally your brain computer processing what happened that day. And what it's doing is it's literally a computer. Your brain is a computer. It is going through your day going, huh, what do we need to file in? Oh, that's emotional. Oh, we need to remember that. And what does it go? Yeah, that bird passing by, and we don't need it. You know, control delete, trash it. And so that's what it does. And so when we experience trauma at whatever time it does, what it does is that it gets stuck in our amygdala, it gets stuck in that part of our fight or flight kind of, you know, limbic system. And then anything we experience gets filtered through that trauma.
mm,
Okay. And so we constantly are like, if you feel like I'm constantly reliving this thing that I'm so afraid of or that this happened to me, right? And so we'll see it in like people who have a car accident and all of a sudden they're like, I cannot see a red car. Every time I see a red car, I get my body shakes.
mm.
I get really, right? And it's like, when did you have that accident? 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, imagine like constantly every time you see your red car, right? Like, so your brain will develop kind of how to do that. And so then it becomes like, well, it only happens once a year, or it only happens, when, it's raining and I'm in a red car and this song was playing, right? So
Wow, yeah.
it'll do this thing to kind of protect you. We're like, okay, that doesn't serve us any well, but it's here. And so then it also happens with phobias, by the way. And so
Mm,
some people will be like, I have a bird phobia. I don't like birds. It makes me really scared. Some people are able to go, yeah, I got attacked when I was a kid by a bird, and I clearly know that that's the reason why. Some people go, I have no idea why I'm afraid of birds. I can't remember. Nothing happened. My parents didn't say anything happened. But we can trace it back to something happened. Your brain couldn't find what to attach to. So it said, birds.
mm,
That's what we're going to be afraid of. And so it attaches to the bird, right? And so EMDR helps you desensitize that by tapping into your REM sleep, which is when, as mechanical your brain is processing, it forces it, and then we force it to go into the memory bank. So it's no longer operating from that place.
yeah,
It's an
and it's
amazing tool.
I love how you explained it because it's so visual, like, I'm
How it
so
works.
understanding. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, for, like, the sensory, the acupunctures,
Yep.
and, I think one more we wanna touch
Like
on,
somatic, right?
acupuncture.
Like somatic
Yeah,
therapy.
yeah.
Yeah. So somatic therapy really focuses on bodily sensations, right? So a lot of the times, and we had a couple of our guests talk about how they were really disconnected from their body, right? Um, like Callie, where she was constantly told not to trust what she was feeling, or when we had a lot of like the gaslighting from some of those toxic relationships where like what you're feeling is not true. And so you kind of like disconnect from your body, or you experience trauma in vitro at the age that was not able to store image yet. So 3 and under, right? Anything that happens from 3 and under, your brain still hasn't developed to store pictures or movies, but it stores in the body, right? So there's sensations in the body. And so somatic therapy helps with connecting those parts, right? Sometimes you have to connect to a body part, an organ or something. And so it kind of helps you tap into that part where, like, I don't know what happened, but I can feel like really like some heaviness here because there's a lot of body scan that happens, and that helps reintegrate. That can be really scary for people who had a lot of physical trauma, but sometimes it has to be really necessary. But again, you come to a therapist, we get you prepared, we talk about it until we get to a place where, like, okay, that's as far as I'm going. We're going to need to kind of tap into those places that you feel like I still feel stuck. I feel like there's still something there that needs to come out, right? And so any of these modalities will help you get there.
I as you see, I hardly had any questions, but I'm just sitting back listening because I've learned a lot.
Well,
So,
good. I hope our
yeah.
listeners have a little bit more understanding. So the takeaway my best is get to a therapist that has as many trainings and modalities as they can, because that is going to be your best bet to get you, because then she can pull from those things, right? And so you're going to ask the questions. What are some of the modalities? What kind of train? Usually it's there on in their website, and there's a list of all the things that they've been trained in or they're certified in. And so, the more psychodynamic that your therapist is, the more that you're going to feel comfortable that they will be able to take out from their toolbox whatever you're going to need at that time.
Wow. This was great.
Good.
I am so excited. Claudia, you are always amazing. Always. Always. And
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
there was a lot of takeaways that our listeners will take from this. I know I have. So, yeah, I can't wait for next week.
Yes. Can't wait either.
Yeah, I'll talk to you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you,
Everybody take
everyone.
care. Bye.
Bye. If this conversation resonated with you, you're not alone. That's exactly why this space exists. Elevate Within is for the high-achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The architecture of reinvention is an invitation to pause, to reflect, to heal, and to begin the process of unbecoming everything you were told you had to be, so you could become who you were always meant to be. Be sure to join us each Friday for our Architecture of Reinvention Roundtable discussions, where we continue these conversations and explore the deeper lessons, insights, tools, and reflections that emerge from each story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. For Apple Podcast listeners, I would be grateful if you leave a rating or review. It helps reach more women who may need this conversation right now. And if you'd like to go deeper, join us on Substack at Elevate Within. There, you'll find weekly essays and honest conversations about burnout, grief, reinvention, resilience, healing, and the messy middle. Free subscribers receive full access to all public content, while paid subscribers receive bonus essays, early access to upcoming series, behind-the-scenes recording, and opportunities to engage directly with the community. If you know of a woman who needs to hear this conversation today, please share it with her. You can find me on LinkedIn under Sandra Davis, on Substack at Elevate Within, And if you're in need of fractional COO work or would like to book a discovery call on how I can help, you can reach out to me at elevateopsadvisory.com. You'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within.